Hello, as most of you already know, my name is Dan Brash and I am one of Richard's classroom teachers here at high school. Within this digital presentation, I will be sharing some information about Richard and his learning and social capabilities and the strategies we look to incorporate in his classrooms as well as in the playground. As many of you know, Richard is one of our young pups here at high school. He's one of our little year seveners. Some information that we'd like to shine a light on is his diagnosis of Asperger syndrome, which he was diagnosed with a couple of years ago in primary school. And unfortunately, he had little support with his learning and social skills there, which ultimately led to low literacy and numeracy levels, and it snowballed into anxiety where he feels very overwhelmed with schoolwork and when he's in social settings and communication with some of his classmates and peers. He does have strengths that we'd like to focus on. A lot of you know that he has very good verbal skills. His vocabulary is quite strong, and he really does like to follow instructions and is quite organised, or tries to stay quite organised and pretty rigid in that way in how he learns. So we'll try and focus on them as we go through. So just like you guys, I strive to provide a happy, productive and inclusive environment for my students. And it all starts even before the lesson begins. I try to have a bit of a chit chat with the students and Richard, and just to get a gauge on how he's feeling. I modify Richard's written work where there's less reading and writing for him, and I incorporate a bit more visual cues like sketches, drawings and images. As far as classroom and workshop activities go, I try to give Richard as much time as I can for him to prepare himself for it. Now, if something pops up and he really feels overwhelmed by it, well, we just discuss possible times and dates where he can later attempt it. So sometimes it is necessary to modify task completion times for Richard. I try to be explicit and direct when explaining classroom tasks to Richard, as he may have trouble comprehending other perspectives. He may struggle with metaphors and sarcasm, so it's best just to use concrete language in short instructional steps. I also find by giving Richard two options to choose from in a variety of circumstances is an effective decision-making strategy for him, where he doesn't feel overloaded with the different choices and possibilities. Regarding Richard's behaviour, myself and Richard's student support group have found that a touch prompt can be an effective strategy to refocus him if he seems a little bit distracted. The touch prompt is just a little tap on the desk followed with a verbal probe like, "Are you focused?" or "Are you staying on track?" This serves as a kind of circuit breaker where he can quickly acknowledge that he's not on task and will generally reset and stick to what has been instructed. And it's just a subtle reminder which helps avoid embarrassment in front of his peers. But if Richard seems to be beyond that point and is quite agitated, he has the option, with teacher permission, to step out of the classroom for a few minutes to gather himself. It is outside where I let him articulate to me what it is that is upsetting him and what he believes should be done. An immediate solution usually involves a compromise from both myself and him, but follow-up discussions with Richard and the student support group are a vital part to uncovering and improving Richard's behaviour strategies. Now, with communication strategies, one which I touched on earlier was to be direct and don't beat around the bush with Richard, as he may not interpret what you're saying. Something as simple as telling your students to chill out until the bell rings could mean something different to Richard, whereas a more direct statement, like telling the students to quietly remain seated until the bell rings, eliminates the chance of being misunderstood. Providing clear options, as well as short, explicit instructions, will reduce the chances of Richard becoming overwhelmed and anxious. An example was when Richard could not decide which timber to choose for his project from the 7 options that were provided. I decided to ask which was his favourite bird out of a pink and grey galah, a rosella and a kookaburra, to which he replied was the kookaburra. I then showed him the 2 timbers that were from the trees that kookaburras most prominently occupy. He chose ironbark. Another way to communicate instructions to Richard is through the teacher's aides. Richard's assigned teacher's aide, Wendy, who works with him on Wednesdays, as well as the other aides that support him in other classes during the week, are a great resource to use when wanting to provide Richard with instructions. Communicating with them where they can forward on my directions can prove a more discreet way of guiding Richard in class. I find that checklists help Richard visually account for learning components within the subject matter. These can be used to break down multi-step assignments and also are useful as a visual checklist to help him monitor and complete his upcoming tasks. Regarding one of Richard's ongoing assessments within his timber workshop subject, he must complete online on-guard safety training tests. He is provided with a modified version where he can listen to the audio, which assists him in comprehending the questions. When completed, he then discusses his results with his teacher's aide and/or myself, gaining reflective and self-assessed feedback. Here are some examples of supplementary adjustments that I have made with help of the student support team to enable Richard to access and participate in education like any other student. These are adjustment descriptors in relation to the National Consistent Curriculum data. On this slide, these are the more specific adjustments I've made which fall under the NCCD's typical supplementary adjustments. As you can see, these are the strategies I have been sharing with you today. Finally, I would like to discuss the collaboration I have with Richard's student support group and the importance of this partnership. The student support group is made up of the deputy principal, the head teacher of support, the school social worker, Richard's teacher's aide, and myself. And we meet with Richard and his mother and work together to write Richard's individualised learning program, or IEP, based on the evaluation and team member suggestions. These meetings are important as we discuss Richard's short-term objectives and long-term goals and implement strategies in his IEP which we believe will assist him in achieving them. And this is where the teachers of Richard, like myself, will need to report back to the student support group on how he is progressing and if he is meeting his goals that are outlined in his IEP. So, as you can see, if we all communicate and work together as a team, we can provide all students, and yes, even students like Richard who have a disability, with the same learning opportunities. Learning opportunities that provide them with knowledge and confidence in their own abilities. Thank you for your time.